we're now going to go into quite a bit of detail about the different types of animal groups. So we're within the kingdom Animalia, in our 7 levels of taxonomy. We're in the animal kingdom. And remember that below kingdom, in our 7 levels, is phylum. So these groups that we're going to talk about are the main different phylums of animals. And the plural of phylums is phyla. So these are all the different phyla of the animal kingdom. We're going to talk through 9 different ones because these are the most common phyla that we see. The first group here is the Phylum Porifera, which they're commonly called the Porphyrins, and they only live in the sea, so we can call them marine, and they have a spongy body, and they're what's called a filter feeder, because they sit on a rock or on the bottom of the sea, and they let the water flow through their body, and they filter out the food and the nutrients so they can eat it. And the most common animals in this group are the sponges. The next phylum we'll look at are this group here, which is called the Phylum Echinodermata, and the echinoderms for short, which basically means spiny skin or rough skin. So the echinoderms, they also are marine, they only live in the ocean, and as I said before, they have spiny skin, and their body has radial symmetry, which means they're shaped like a wheel or a pizza, where each slice looks the same. And this group of animals includes the sea urchins and sea stars as well, which we can see in the picture. The next phylum we'll look at is called Phylum Nematode, or the nematodes for short. Often this group is called the Nematode Worms because all of these animals have a worm-like body, and on top of that, they're only parasites, which means they live inside other animals, and some humans, we can be attacked by nematodes sometimes, and they can cause disease. And these parasites live inside animals, and they steal nutrients away from that animal. These are particularly nasty animals, things like roundworm and heartworm as well, which if you have a pet, you often have to give them heartworm tablets so they don't get attacked by nematodes. Okay, the next group is called the Cnidarians. Phylum Cnidaria. The C is silent when we pronounce it. Cnidarians. And we can see in the picture, these are marine animals. They live in the ocean. They have a circular body, just like the echinoderms do, and they have stinging cells That's a common feature of the Cnidarians. And the most common one, the common type of Cnidarians that we would know are jellyfish. All jellyfish have stinging cells, but some of them can't sting very strongly. But particularly blue bottles, if you go up to Queensland, they have a really powerful and painful sting. Alright, the next group is called Phylum Annelida, which are the Annelid Worms, or commonly called the segmented worms. Because if you look at their body, you can see in the picture that their body is made up of different segments, all joined together, different sections. And all these animals have worm-like bodies as well. This is the common group that has earthworms, which we know. And leeches too come in this phylum. The next phylum is called Phylum Platyhelminthes. And these are called the flatworms for short. Mostly because they have a really flat body. It's hard to see in this picture, but their body is really flat and thin, and they pretty much live in moist environments so that their bodies don't dry out too much. But they're quite small, they're microscopic. And a common parasite that you might have heard of is a tapeworm. And these are in the Phylum Platyhelminthes. The last three groups here, the first group we have is Phylum Mollusca, which are the mollusks. And mollusks, they all have a muscular, it's called a muscular foot at the bottom, or they have tentacles. And sometimes they have a shell, but not all mollusks have a shell. Sometimes a shell. And lots of common mollusks we know live in the ocean or the garden. Things like snails and slugs, shellfish, and octopuses and squids, and cuttlefish. They're all mollusks. The next group here is the Phylum Arthropoda, which are called the arthropods for short. And these animals all have an exoskeleton, which means their skeleton, they don't have bones inside their body, they have a hard outer case on the outside of their body to protect them. And all the bodies of the arthropods are made in segments. Their legs and their tails, they're all made up of smaller sections joined together. And there are lots of common animals that we know that are arthropods. All the insects, spiders, and sea creatures like crayfish and crabs, they're all arthropods. Lastly, we have Violin Chordata, which are also called the chordates. And this is the phylum that we're part of. We have an endoskeleton, so we have bones inside our body to hold up our body. And compared to other animals, we have a spinal cord. So we have nerves that run down our back, as part of our nervous system. So the chordates includes most of the common animals that we know. The fish, the amphibians, so the frogs and the toads, reptiles, and mammals and birds.